I can't complain about my date today. It was pretty good. But today, I think we're doing something a little bit different than we usually do.
Mhm.
Usually we come on and we talk about one of our favorite topics, which is dating and other things, right?
Love hate
Um,
that topic for sure.
right, right. And I know we've touched, on different aspects of dating and whatnot, but today we're doing something a little bit different, and it's more getting to know who the founder is of Shifted Perspective Consulting, right? Which is you,
Mhm.
Dr.
Mhm.
Mariela Diocares. That's who founded Shifted Perspectives. And, I think that, as I was mentioning to you, I think it's important that we get to know who you are, and I think it's also so empowering, right, for other Latina women, or women in general, to know the story behind, the great women that are successful, like
Wow,
yourself. And
you're gonna make me blush. Thank you.
well, I think that it's a very powerful, success, right? And I think this month, I think when we celebrate International Women's Day or something like that,
Yeah.
next week. And so, in honor of that, I think it would be so awesome to hear a little bit about your story, you know. And I think I'll start off with a few questions. That way,
Yeah.
we get to know you a little bit more. But tell us a little bit about your background. We know you're a doctor. Tell us a little bit about that. You're a doctor in what? How did you get to that? A little bit of that area of your life.
So the official, I guess, doctorate title, it's weird, is Doctor of Education and Counseling Psychology. And I will admit, even though I've had it, I was thinking about this actually the other day. It's going to be 7 years already, which is kind of weird. There are
Mm.
still times when people call me doctor, and I'm like, who are you talking to? Because
Yeah.
I'm still not used to it. And that's not to like brag or anything. It's just sometimes a weird title, because I don't see myself as a doctor, right? When you think about somebody who's a doctor, you think of somebody that's like revered and has done all these amazing, fabulous things. And to me, I feel like what I have accomplished, the things that I have done, I needed to do them because, I'm a mom and I needed to succeed, right? Not succeeding was never an option. Even before becoming a mom, my parents were very much of, well, let me back up a little. Because we immigrated to the United States, the expectation was always of, we came to this country to succeed, right? We're going to
Mhm.
take advantage of everything the country has to offer, and you will be one of those success stories. However, you look at it, you're going to be a success. So that was drilled into my head from a very young age. One thing that I can thank both of my parents about is, education was always a very strong component in our life, from the time that I can remember. My parents always told us that one way or another, we were going to go to college and have an education and not depend on anyone. So, those foundations of being independent, those foundations of doing something, not just getting a degree, but doing something with it, they were always there. And so, I knew that I wanted to help people because I was always curious as to, why people do the things that they do. And, I grew up in a very traumatic, um, environment, not just the immigrating from another country, but just the dynamics within my family were not very healthy. And so having to grow up with that, but still knowing that I needed to be something and try to understand those behaviors, I think were what drove me to want to get into psychology and understand, why people do the things they do. And honestly, I feel like, okay, I've done all this education and research and learning, and I don't understand it any better. So in
That's
fact, the more
awesome.
I learn, the more I'm like, I don't really know that much.
I think I've asked you this before, because you're a mom, and while you were going through your journey, and I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, as we get into your journey and the journey of success, right? For you, it's like I'm not a doctor yet, and I think of like, well, I feel successful once I am a doctor. And I think I asked you this question before, right? Like, do you feel successful? Like,
No.
right? And tell us a little bit about that, because I think this, what's so important, I think, about this conversation too, is that there's some honesty in all of this, right? It's so transparent. Like, we need to know the goods and the ups and the downs, right? Because I think some of us want to be doctors, and I don't know, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but maybe we think that at that point we'll feel successful, and it's like, well, wait a minute, will we feel successful? I don't know. So tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that.
So, that's actually a really good question because um by society standards, yes, I've reached a certain level of success, but I haven't reached like the pinnacle of success, right? Because according to cultural standards, I should be married and, all of these criteria that I am not, and I'm okay with that. But when I say that I don't feel successful, it's probably because the goals that I have set for myself, and the thing is with goals with me is, so I achieve one and then I have like five more. So that's why I always feel like I'm not successful because I haven't achieved every single one of my goals. That's just me though.
Mm.
Um, there's still a lot more that I want to do. I've told you before that I want to go back for a second doctorate just because I love to learn and because I think it would be fascinating. And why not add more letters to my name? Right?
True, true.
And, I want to write a book, and there's so much more that I want to do. And to me, success, maybe I'll feel it when I'm older and I can sit down and I guess really kind of marinate in it. For now, though, to me, it's okay. I completed the doctorate. I opened up several businesses. I'm achieving these things, but they're just part of the greater big plan for myself.
Okay.
So,
Tell us a little bit, right now that you mentioned businesses, tell us a little bit of how, you decided, okay, I'm going to go for it, and I'm going to open up Shift of Perspectives Consulting. Like, tell us, what was the idea behind that, and what made you say, I'm just going to do this?
yeah. So, even before, this is probably when I was working on my bachelor's degree, I knew that I wanted to open a place where um, there would be services offered specifically for Latinos, for women, for people that mental health is not necessarily something that we grew up with, right? And
Right.
it wasn't just going to be counseling, it was going to be education, and it was going to be a variety of things. And I knew that that was one of the things that I wanted to accomplish once I finished my doctorate, because one of the things that I've learned is that people pay more attention to you when you're called doctor. Not that they don't when you're not a doctor, but you have a
Hmm.
little bit more gravitas when you're a doctor, right? And so
Right.
this was always kind of the idea that I would open up a business. Um, and as I was going through, school, I saw, because I worked in a lot of community places, community-based services. I worked for a private practice. I worked in a lot of different settings, and there were very few places where I saw that there were happy clinicians. And so to
Mm.
me, um, it seemed like the formula wasn't adding up, right? As clinicians, we have to be there for the client, but I felt like those facilities were not really there for the clinician. And
Mm.
so I thought, you know what? If I open a company, do I want it to be the same thing, right? Do I want it to be just client based? Do I just want to give the education not just to my team, but also to the client, that it's all about the client? And to me, I feel like, and I mean, you're part of my team, so you can definitely um,
Mhm.
tell me if we're not following through on this. But to me, it's more of, no, I'm going to take care of my team, because without my team, there is no team, number
Right.
one. And number two, um, you're important to me. Clients are going to come and go, but my team is not.
Right.
And, you know, I wanted it to be a different kind of environment of, let's focus on you. Let's, that self care that we talk about, let's start it
Mhm.
with us. Let's start it with, you know, being able to be honest and say, I didn't do self-care. I haven't done it as much as I should be doing it. I'm struggling with I struggle with anxiety. I struggle with depression, and that's okay. Providing a safe place, not just for the team, but also for clients to have those conversations. And it's just evolved from there. It's not just about providing counseling services. Now it's growing into other areas, which I think is fabulous. And that's what I had in mind as well, that I wanted it to develop. I wanted it to grow. I wanted it to be organic and just, this is the need that we have now, or this is the direction that we want to go in now. Let's do it. Let's try it. Why not?
Right. And I can for sure tell you, and not just because, you're here and it's you who I'm interviewing, but for sure the culture, right, within the team is very much about self-care. You have to take care of yourself. I don't know how many times we talk about it, right? And you've done a fabulous job at, I speak for myself and making me feel appreciated for the work that I do, and also allowing me to have some individuality in the role that I play with the team, right? I can be myself. I can bring some things to the table. I'm not afraid to say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Because even if I'm not so confident about the idea, I know I'm getting some honest feedback and it's constructive and it's not, like a Debbie Downer, so
Hmm.
I for sure say, yes, definitely what you had in mind is what happens, um, with,
Yay!
with
Now
the
I feel
team.
successful.
And, I think it's important to also like point that your dissertation was about self-care.
Yeah.
Right. So, which, again, I was reading, because we do have, other podcasts that are coming up, and one of them is talking about like self-care in women, and I was reading about these things and whatnot, and I thought, like, my gosh, like, self-care is taken for granted, right? Or sometimes it's misinterpreted as other things, which we'll get to in the next podcast. But such an interesting topic that your dissertation was on self-care, and that's
Hmm.
what you preach to the team, right? Self-care is important. You have to, I am told to have a day off, right? Where you don't do any work, you do whatever else you want. Um, so I find all of those things so interesting. But you are successful because you for sure did all of those things. Tell me, what was one of like, the most difficult things that you had to go through in your journey of becoming a doctor?
There were a lot. I, probably in my 30s, I did a lot of things. Um, well, between my 20s and my 30s, I did a lot. Um, I got married twice, I got divorced twice, I had two children. But probably one of the most difficult things, and this was actually during my dissertation time. At that time, I was working full time, I was working part time, I was going to school full time, I was raising a 12-year-old, and I was raising a toddler. And yeah, it was, it was, it got to
Wow.
the point, yeah. So it got to the point where, and this is, I guess, how much I realize now, and there were moments then as well, but that I definitely was not doing self care. And I recognize and I own that, because I remember thinking at one point that things were so stressful and I was not getting any downtime at all, that in order for me to get a break, I was considering checking myself into a psych ward just to get a break, right?
Mhm.
Which that's pretty extreme when you think about it.
Yeah.
But to me, that was the only break, the only way that I could get a break, right? And so while I was working on my dissertation, I still hadn't made the connection of the fact that I was burnt out and the fact that I felt like I didn't have the supports that I needed. I had my family, obviously, and they were there to cheer me on, but sometimes you need more than a cheerleader, right? Sometimes you need that friend that's going to come to your house and cook you a meal. Sometimes you need
Mhm.
that friend that's going to be like, you are done being in front of the computer or working, and just takes you out and you go get your nails done, or you just go for a walk, or you just go do something different, right? And so that was probably the most difficult 5 years that I've had, because I was doing so much. And so it's really interesting because it's actually been since this I opened up SPC, where I haven't been working more than one job, which is really interesting because the whole time that I was in school, I was working two jobs. I was
Mhm.
going to school full time. I was doing all of these things. Do I recommend it? No. Has it made me very biased? Yes, because when people
Mhm.
say, "Oh, I struggle just to go to school," and in my head I'm thinking, I don't understand that. I'm
Right.
sorry. Right?
Right. And I think that's why I asked this question, because I know you've shared with me a lot of your journey through this doctorate program that you completed. And I think it's important, right, to note that it's not easy. It's not like a walk in the park, so to say. There are certain struggles along the way. And, I think it's important to note that you are a mom, like with two kids, having to figure stuff out. Sure, you had somewhat a support system, but you were working two jobs and putting yourself through a doctorate program. I mean, I took a break after my first year of the doctorate program because it is hard. I cannot even begin to imagine the kind of discipline to have to work multiple jobs, do the program, and on top of that, still have to balance life because
Mhm.
it's real. I think when I look back at my bachelor's or my master's program, I think, oh, okay, it wasn't that bad. But when you're in it, it doesn't feel that way. It does not
Yeah.
feel that way. So I think it's important to know to bring that out and to talk about those things because maybe there are other women out there trying to juggle all of these things, and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm on my own. And I think you're not. You're not on your own. Some of us, have been there, some of us are going through it, and some of us will probably be there in a few years.
Yeah.
Um, so you've told us about how you started a little bit of shifted and how you ended up um, finishing your degree or going into that direction. But tell us some of the things that you are most passionate about. We know helping people is one of them, because that's what you do, right?
Mhm.
But what is it? Is that it? Is that your passion? Is there something else that you're super passionate about?
There are a lot of things. One of them is books.
Yes,
And
I know that.
reading and expanding. Yes,
Mhm.
books definitely make me happy and are my security blankets. Um, I think that honestly, and I don't know if it's really calling it passion. I think it could be a combination of passion and trauma, and let me explain. Um, and these are a lot of things that I've actually never talked to anybody about before, but growing up, my dad told me more than once that I wasn't enough. And so that's always been the mantra in my head of, I'm not enough. Whatever I accomplish, it's not enough. I can do more. And so that's why I say it's part passion, part trauma, because yes, that still is a traumatic thoughts in my head, but it's also been what's driven me to continue to achieve things that I want to achieve, right? Um, it's really interesting because I had a supervisor once and she's like, "Is there anything you can't do?" And I paused and I was like, "No, there isn't. Why would there be?" Right? If there's obstacles, okay, those are obstacles, unless absolutely there's clear evidence that I can't do it. But so far, the things that I've achieved for myself have come to pass. And I know it has a lot to do with my support system. It has a lot to do with probably my unmedicated ADHD. I will own that. But, you know, the passion to want to succeed, the passion to say, you know what? I was an immigrant. I am an immigrant. Um, a woman, a minority, all of these checks against me, I can do it.
Mhm.
You know, that passion to want to succeed and say, I didn't have a partner because I really didn't have a partner that was there by my side. I wasn't able to say, I can just go to school and just focus on school. I wasn't able to say, I knew that somebody was going to take care of my kids while I was in school or working. So, all of these things against me, to me, were part of the passion that drove me to continue to achieve what I wanted to. And so, even now, when I have goals, to me, it's like, if you did all of this under so much pressure, you really have no excuse not to achieve the goals that you have now, which, you know, could sound like a really bad statement. Um, right? Like a like a bullying statement, but
Mhm.
that's those are the kind of conversations that I have with myself. And I think that it was also because I do, when I talk about having anxiety, when I talk about having depression, obviously there are those moments where I'm just like, what's the point of this? Right? Why get
Mhm.
up? Why do
Right.
all these things? At the end of the day,
Right.
does it really matter? Right? I'm just another woman that got her doctorate. So what? There's other women that have done it before, right? And then I think about, no, you're doing it because you want to show your kids and you kind of want to set the bar pretty high for your kids. And you know,
Mhm.
I tell my kids and they think that I'm joking, but I'm really not joking. Um, if your mom's a doctor, what's your excuse for not becoming a doctor? Right?
Right.
Maybe that's setting the bar pretty high, but you really
But
have no
I think
excuses.
that's so true, right? Because you're setting the tone for your children, right? You're setting, and I think it's not so much of like, oh, that's the expectation, but I think it's more of anything is possible, and you could do many things. Um, some things you may be able to do well, some things maybe not. Maybe you picked a career or a passion of yours that you want to accomplish, you want to do. That's what you want to do for a living, and you do it. Um, and I think, some people may look at that and be like, oh, well, if the mom is a doctor, then they're expected to be doctors. But I think what you're really saying is, this is what I want it to be. This is, what I set the bar for myself. And what that tells you is that you can set whatever bar you want for yourself and be successful at it.
Hmm.
Whether it's a doctor or not, it's up to you, right? Um, I'm also glad that you brought up, like all of the things that sometimes play against us, women and women who are Latinas, in becoming doctors. Um, how would you say, how difficult was your journey knowing that all of these things were against you? Did that motivate you more? Did that discourage you from the process?
You know, yes, in a lot of ways, yes, because number one, English is not my first language. And so, you know, I had to, when we immigrated here, I was 5. And so I had to go to summer school just to learn English. And even now, I don't say that I think in Spanish, but when I get upset or, you know, Spanish comes out because
Mm.
obviously it's my first language. But I remember one conversation that I had with my mom when I started my doctorate. And my mom actually, and I love my mom and she's amazing and, you know, she's human. But one of the things that she told me was, why couldn't you just stay home and raise your kids and be a wife?
Mm,
Why wasn't that enough?
mhm.
And so to me, that was pretty powerful because I could have continued that cycle of, yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that, by the way, of, staying home and being a mom or a wife. Um, but that was never enough for me because I knew that I needed to do more. I knew that I fulfilled my role as a mom, but I could also do more. And I think that a lot of times we need to shift the way that we look at roles because, the role of a woman, the role of a mother, the role of a Latina is changing, right? The
Mhm.
expectations that come with that
Yes.
are changing, right?
Yes.
Now it's not so much you being a homemaker. Now it's you're going out there and working and
Oh
still
yeah.
being a mom, right?
Right.
You're
Right.
still achieving your goals. You're still allowed to have dreams and pursue them. And I think
Absolutely.
that behind anything, especially when I found out that I was having a girl, it was important for me to be that role model. It was important for me to allow and provide and create that space for my daughter to say, baby, you go do what you want to do. It's
Mm,
okay, right? Yes, you're a woman, and yes, you're going to have all of these hurdles, but I made you. I know what you're made of. So you got
right.
this. You can do
Right.
it.
And that's so powerful, right? To a child, to a little girl, right? That she gets to look up to her mom and see, like, wow, my mom can do all of these things. I can do all of these things, right? The power that you're passing down to the next generation.
Hmm.
Um, such powerful stuff. Like, oh my gosh. Um, what are some tips that you would give to moms who, if they're not going for their doctorate, but they're going to school and they're trying to juggle, right? Like, um, all of these things is this balance of life of being a woman, but especially targeting those Latina women, right? That there are so many things against us. And I'm not saying that there aren't anything against other women of different ethnic backgrounds. I know I'm focusing on specifically Latina women because that's what we both are, right? And
Hmm.
so, what are some of the tips that you would give to the ladies out there who are working, who are moms, and who are school, and they're just like they need maybe something to keep them going?
It's actually probably one of the hardest questions that I've ever been asked because there isn't a perfect formula that I can tell you, right? Um, I can only speak on what I've done and um, just based on my experience of not having a partner and just having to do it. I think that as Latinas, we look at a problem and we find a solution. That's just how we're wired, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not
Mm-hmm.
really the kind to just kind of expect things to happen to us. We're the ones that make things happen. And
Mm-hmm.
so, um, one of the things that I wish somebody would have told me was it's okay to take a break because I
Mm-hmm.
forget that very frequently. Even now, I forget that, you know, I need to take a break. It's funny because, um, like I mentioned earlier, this is probably one of the only times since I was small that I only have per se one job, although I'm running a few companies. But um, there are days where I just want to read for a couple hours and I feel guilty because I'm thinking you're reading in the middle of the day when you should be like working and just
Mm-hmm.
focused on work or just focused on
Mm-hmm.
learning or just focused on
Right.
all these other things, right? Or you could be spending time with your kids or you could be cleaning or you could be cooking or you could
Mm-hmm.
be, and I have to fight with that. I have to fight with that guilt and shame. I have to fight with those voices in my head really to say, you know what? No, I've worked really hard to get to where I'm at. If I want to read and I have the time and I'm able to, for a couple of hours in the middle of the day, it's okay to do that
Right.
because it's part of my mental health, right?
Right.
Um, so I know that we talk about mental health and it's a huge subject. But I think that as women, we don't give ourselves that compassion and grace of, you know what? You need to take a break. You really do.
Mhm.
You need to learn what it's like to put yourself first, to,
Mhm.
right? Find what makes you happy, find what gives you pleasure, find what gives
Mhm.
you joy. And it's an individual journey. Everybody's is different, right?
Yep.
And it's going to evolve. Some days it's
Mhm.
going to be reading a book, other days it's just taking off for the day somewhere and just spending the day in a place where you never thought you would, right?
Right. Right.
Um, so I think it's not forgetting who at the core you truly are, which is a wonderful, beautiful woman that deserves to take care of herself as well.
Nice. I think that's so important. I mean, I know, we've had so many conversations around that subject. So, um, any advice to future doctoras
Yes,
that are
like
in the
you.
process? Yes, like me, that are in the process right now.
Absolutely. And I know that we've had conversations about this as well, but um there are going to be, and it's completely normal because I went through it myself and I know that a lot of my colleagues have as well, where you just want to give up because it is a lot. It really is a lot. I know that I've shared with you that I called my chair up many times. I called my mom up there a lot of times and said, "I'm done. I'm quitting. I can't do this. I can't complete the doctorate." And if it wasn't for their belief in me that I could do it, I probably wouldn't have done it. And so
Wow.
you're going to have those moments where it's a lot, and
Mm.
that's okay. But you need to have that someone that's going to be like, I'm going to validate you because it is. I get it. I understand. But you need to continue to do this. You need to continue to do it because you're worth it. You've got it. You can do it. You know that you can do it. And there are going to be days when you don't believe that, but you're still going to do it. So have that person or people in your life that are going to be there to support you and help you and, continue to encourage you. And um, sometimes we need those people in our lives to just say, you know what?
Mhm.
All right, I'm going to give you an hour to whine, but after that, you need to keep going. You got this.
I think it's there's somebody that says you can have like a 15, 20 minutes of a pity party, but then you have to get back on track, right?
Yeah.
So that's great. Um, any words of advice for moms that are thinking about, maybe not just going back to school, but starting their own business. Maybe they kind of just are waiting for that little push, to go on to the next level of their life. Would any advice for them?
Do it. Stop thinking about it and just do it. Whether you're a mom or not, just do it. And you're going to see this in a lot of places. There's never going to be a right time. There's never going to be a perfect time, right? It's kind of like when you think about having a kid, is there really a perfect or right time to have a kid? Not really. And it really
Right,
doesn't
right.
depend on you. Um, Having my own business has definitely changed my life in such a significant way. And it's allowed me opportunities that I dreamt about. It continues to allow me freedoms that I thought I would never be able to have. And so, sometimes I think about what would have happened if I would have started it a lot earlier, but then I think about the time wasn't right. I wasn't secure enough. I wasn't in a place where I absolutely I wasn't in a place where the belief that the business needed was there, right? Because we live with doubts of what if I'm not successful? What if it doesn't
Mhm.
take off? If, what if? But at some point, you have to kind of say, you know what? What if I never started and I always regret it? And that would be
Mhm.
like the greatest. I don't know. I don't know if I could have lived with that, knowing that I just lived in what if land. Um,
Mhm.
I know that you and I have talked about you possibly opening your business, and basically everybody that I talk to, especially women that have an idea about a business, to me, it's like, do it. It's scary, but it's such
Yes.
a good scary. And
Yes.
there's so many supports that you can get. And
Mhm.
as a woman, why not do it? As a mom, you know how we talk about we want to give our kids a better life than what we had.
Mhm.
And for a lot of people, that's giving them things that we never had, right? But
Right.
to me, it's like, what about opportunities that we never
Mm.
had, right? What about showing them things that our parents were unable to do or maybe lived in what if land? And you're the one that changes that cycle of, you know what, we're going to stop talking about it and we're actually going to do it. And so, even because there's no real, I can't say that I'm a success because it's an everyday thing. But whether my businesses succeed or fail, it's still going to be a lesson that my kids are not going to learn in school, right?
Right.
It's
Right.
They're going to be able to see, and they do see how much I struggle. They do see my triumphs. They do see what having a business has provided, but they also understand that it hasn't been easy because they have, my kids have gone to school with me. They've attended classes with me. They know what it's like to, hey mom, let's go do this. I can't because I have homework. I can't because I have
Mhm.
to, you know, do this, or I have to work, or I have to, right? So they understand
Mhm.
that it hasn't been easy, but they also see the rewards. And there's no school that's going to teach you that,
Right.
right?
Right.
And so
That's
if
very
you
true.
really want to give your kids an opportunity, if you want to give them things that you never had, then show them the way.
Wow. That's really good. I really appreciate, some of the things that you've said because I think that with some women, there's that traumatic piece, right, in their life for some of them. And for you, or you shared a little bit about what that was like for you and your father. And, in the midst of wanting to, in a sense, prove him wrong, there's also that doubt sometimes, right? That doubt that gets the best of us. Maybe I will not succeed. Um, maybe I am going to prove him right, and I'm scared to do that, and I'm scared to
Hmm.
take that step, right? But I think that there's power in taking that step. It's so powerful to just have the courage to take the step because really you're fearful, but you're doing it with fear. You're still doing it,
Hmm.
right? It's and in having you you're gonna maybe have a regret later, but it won't be that because you tried it, you did it. So really appreciate you sharing, that, as a doctor, as a whole, as a woman, as a whole, as a mother, as a whole, there's different hats that you carry, and none of those hats are perfect, right? Because I think sometimes we look at people as successful as you are and say her life must be perfect. Like she probably has nothing to worry about, or like, um, I think our minds start going, right? Anytime we see that doctor in front of your name, all of a sudden, right, we just think, man, her life must be fabulous. I mean, she's a doctor, right? She must be so smart. And oh my God, she knows everything, right?
Hmm.
And I hear you say sometimes, well, I don't know it all, but like I'll figure it out, right? And it's that. It's like that power of knowing you can. So I just really appreciate you for one taking the time, to talk to everyone that gets to watch this about Shifted Perspective Consulting, what it's all about, the foundation of it, right, and how you see your clients and your staff, your team, and just telling us a little bit about your life because there's so much more that we didn't tap into today. But I think that it is, if anything, we can walk away knowing that no matter where you are at in your journey, you can make any choice, any decision to change that, and your life will change, and you
Hmm.
will accomplish certain things. And doctors are not perfect, right? Like you have a story of a traumatic experience, a traumatic, life, and that just motivated you to become, so much more, right, than that traumatic experience. And I think you're successful. And I think that a lot of people that would say, wow, she has a doctorate, she's a mom, it's like she has a few businesses. This is just one of them. It's that's a successful person. So just really want to thank you for the time and appreciate you sharing with us. And any last thoughts that you'd like to share?
No, you know, I think that I attribute a lot of the success that I have today to the people that surround me. My family, my kids, definitely, people like you in my life that help
Mhm.
me stay humble and self-aware, and that I can say, you know what, Diana, I get you. I really do get you because I have been where you're at. Um,
Yeah.
and to know that, you know what, if any tiny little thing that I do, even if it's small and it inspires you to do, achieve your dreams, follow, chase whatever it is that you want to, then it was worth it. And,
Mhm.
just being able to share and talk about that, I think that a lot of times, again, in on the road to success, we, at least I can speak for myself, I don't sit down and say, oh yeah, all these things are a success. To me, it's more
Mhm.
like, okay, I got that done. Now we're going to be working on, five other things at the same time.
Yeah.
Um, so again, I feel that I have been blessed and honored to have amazing people in my life, and those are the people that have helped shape and create what I am today. So I didn't do it alone. I completely recognize that, and I'm not going to continue to do it alone. Um, but the people that are in my life, they bring value to my life. They bring consistency. They bring the elements, the ingredients that I need in order to have reached and done what I have. So thank you for being in my life and
You're
for being a
welcome.
part of that success recipe, right?
Yes,
So
yes. Well, thank you. I'm so honored, and really, it was great to be able to ask you some of these tough questions. If anybody, listening to us is looking for services and would love to have Dr. Diocares, be the one providing that service, go ahead and go to shiftedperspectiveconsulting.com, right?
mhm.
And you can find her there. We do have a few podcasts coming up in the next couple of weeks, right? A lot that will tap into some of the other stuff that we didn't touch today, like it's okay to not be okay,
Mhm.
self-care in women, you know, self-care, I think, for counselors. And I think we have one more that it's like self-care during dating, which is our favorite topic. But definitely,
And
if
we're also going to be interviewing you in the next one, which
yes.
I'm very excited about for sure.
Yeah, so we get to switch roles on the next one, and Dr.
Yes.
Yukatis gets to interview me as well. So, anybody that is listening, feel free to join us and to, go to the page and look at what services we provide as well. And, we're just, I think, two women, trying to help people out there, and especially, the Latina community, the Latino community. So,
Absolutely. Yes.
thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. We'll see you
Mhm.
soon.